Today we are talking with entrepreneur Cody Jones.
He didn't read our book.
Hello, and welcome to the My Father Said podcast, where we discuss all things faith, finance, and family. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan. I'm both a father and a son.
Hey, everybody. I'm Robert. I'm Ryan's dad, and I myself am a son of my father's.
That's right. And today we are joined by Cody Jones. Cody, you don't have any kids, do you?
I do not have children.
All right, so Cody is just a son, not a father. Yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I will say it sounds like my dad didn't tell me to read a book before I came to meet with somebody. So.
For those of you that were just joining, we were having a little bit of fun prior to the camera rolling, so that's an inside joke. But yeah, so today we are joined by Cody, and we are going to learn a little bit about what it is that he does, just the mindset on different things. The reason we've got Cody on is, personal finance, financial harmony, if you will, is
Sounds
just
like a book title.
right. Yeah. It's just a.
Cody, have you ever read a book that began with financial harmony?
Oh man, I don't know about that.
That's good. But that's just one aspect of like self-improvement or self-help, bettering yourself. That's just one aspect. And Cody really focuses on, different individuals, business owners, about their health, about their business, and just improving other aspects of their well-being. So with that, Cody, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how long you've been doing it?
Man, that's a very multi-layered question. So I started a landscaping company when I was 20 years old, about 2 months before my 21st birthday. And that business just turned 11 last year. Mm-hmm. So late last year, which would have been about a decade into that first business, I started a coaching business. Because, being an entrepreneur from 20 years old, man, I learned a lot. Didn't really have a mentor or guidance, as far as like what to do in business. So I had to learn a lot of this stuff, real world. Practical application, took some of that knowledge and sort of started this coaching business with it. And now I'm starting to help people that were maybe in my space or maybe be the person I needed for myself at one point to these people that I'm working with.
Yeah. I was on your podcast earlier this year, and we were talking about it. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're like the first entrepreneur from your family, right? There's not a lot of people.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. There's actually been a couple generations of entrepreneurs in my family. All right. I would say that I'm the one that's maybe. I think I'm the first one to sort of branching out into different aspects, because it's always been farming. I come from a family of farmers,
okay. Yeah.
So it's been for several generations there. That's been the trades, farming. I think there was a couple different other roofers or whatever, down the line.
What made you want to branch out from farming to multiple business ventures?
So farming is a very important job. It's a very laborious job. It's very, intense. But I didn't feel like that was what I should do at the time. And I tell people this, when you start a business, man, you sort of have this, it's almost like it just comes to you. You want to do this. I knew a little bit about landscaping, and I felt like I could grow and scale a landscaping company to a certain point. So it was really just about, it got to the point where I just could not breathe working, a 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, you know what, man, I know a little bit about landscaping. I see these guys doing this. They have multiple trucks running around. I bet I can do this for myself.
Yeah, good for you.
Well, yeah. But life is like, okay, well, we'll see. We'll see how bad you want it. But yeah, man, I just felt like, I already knew something a little bit about it. And it's very easy to get into landscaping. A lot of people know how to do it. But the business aspect of it, the technical stuff, is what a lot of people don't know. And I think that's why a lot of people don't survive in it.
That's cool. So look, little sidebar here. You were thinking about being a farmer at one point in your life. What made you decide not to do that?
My farming uncle told me to go get a real job.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he basically said, no, you don't want to do this. It's hard work all the time. And here I am today. I'm actively kicking around the idea of, cutting back work hours and relaxing and all of that. And I still see that uncle getting up at sunrise and working past sunset still to this day, sometimes 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So he gave me probably some of the best career guidance advice that I've ever had. And I agree with you, Cody. I grew up working on the farms and tossing watermelons and cantaloupes and doing that every summer, cutting beans, picking cotton, everything that everybody else who works on a farm would do. And I can sometimes see myself out there when I ride by, sometimes on a Sunday morning going to church. And I can look over in the field and I can see some poor soul out there in the field.
Oh, yeah.
Driving their tractor because they got to beat the rain.
Yep.
Yeah, so, I see that.
It's, I feel like there's several different businesses that it's hard to really scale. I mean, you can hire somebody to farm, but I think to do it effectively, you got to know the equipment, you got to know the crops and stuff. So I think that's one of the few things, or one of the many things probably business wise, that you can't really scale like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I see these guys, like it is amazing to me that a roofing company can scale, because I just feel like that's something that's so complex, you know what I mean? Like roofing a house.
Sure.
And so it's but I guess it goes into training these individuals, what they can do. I guess that would be the magic of it, the leadership of it.
Perfect. All right. So you started that landscaping business, and now you have branched out into the coaching world. Do you coach individuals, or are you strictly business owners? What does your coaching world look like?
So I have an acronym that I usually answer that for, which is BASE: business owners, athletes, salespeople, entrepreneurs. I would rather, because of my I guess skills or expertise, I would rather there to be two sort of boxes checked in those. So at least two of those, which if you're an entrepreneur, you might be all four. You know, it just kind of depends. So it's been individuals, but I recently just had an opportunity to go speak at a group. Yeah. So that might be something I'm adding in. We're kind of working out the details of that now. So, but yeah, so it's in that space. These are actually students that I would be going to talk to for this particular situation.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So you are doing the coaching. What all does that entail? And what I'm getting at is, I know that you work with like the mindset, you'll help with like their fitness and whatnot. Walk us through what exactly you're helping them with and why that matters.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And I think this group activity that we're talking about is a really good way to answer that. So we're going to go through three sort of different elements that I feel like are important for these guys to develop their brand. And so that would be purpose, that would be the pursuit of that purpose, and then that would be the identity that's attached to that. And so if we're talking about mindset, one thing that I'm huge on is identity. I don't think that we just build businesses. I don't think that we just achieve goals. I think we become the person who can make those things happen. And then by an extension of that, we make that thing happen. Yeah. So, when people talk about pursuing a goal or something along those lines, it's like, well, what can I do to make that happen? Well, what does that person do? If that person that has a 7-figure business, what do they do? That's what we should be doing to do these things. And so, yeah, but if you break it down with like 4 key pillars, it would be mindset, mental, physical performance, and then tools, which include things like leadership, and then strategy, which is like your sales, your team building, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've heard an old adage, health is wealth, wealth is health. In your experience working with different people, have you found that to be true? The people that are a little more successful also care a little bit about their health, and the people that care about their health are a little more successful than, people that don't?
I would say, yeah. But now you have to be careful how you word this, because when we use the word like fitness, people think you're just supposed to be, this huge jack guy. But there's actually several different elements to fitness. So you have your mental fitness, your emotional fitness, your spiritual.
What'd you say?
So that's me, Jack.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's easy to think about.
Look at this physique.
I know. Look at he's buffing up over here, man. But there's just different aspects to fitness. Like you have a lot of people don't think about spiritual fitness, your emotional and mental, fitness. It's basically just being able to, what would it be? Be resilient sort of in those areas, I feel like. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely 100% a connection to at least your physical health, if nothing else, your physical health, and I think the money that you can make. And I actually have sort of a philosophy maybe that I feel like that's the case. So I feel like there's 5 different practical ways that fitness directly being fit, like physically fit, mentally fit, directly relates to income. Those are health, environment, presentation, self-confidence, and the last is the most important, the process. And we can go through those if you want to, but those are sort of 5 different elements that can really increase your revenue.
Yeah, let's go through those. That's awesome.
For sure. So, okay. So, and there's different ways to go about this. So I don't want somebody to hear this and say that it's just fitness is the only way you can do this. I think education would probably be another way to do this.
Probably do that through reading, don't you?
Oh man, I'm not gonna be able to live that down.
No, you're not.
So I mean, yeah, just to start out, man, the health thing. So when you are, and I'm not saying again, you don't have to be jacked or anything, but when you are a person who takes care of yourself, the message that you send to a client, to a person on the other side of that table, is that you have a long-term mentality. You are thinking long-term because you're thinking about your health long-term. So what that means is the likelihood that you are going to cheat or scam that person is probably less likely because you care about your reputation long-term. I mean, like what you guys have here, man, I think you guys have a great thing going on here. There's several different generations involved in this. So you guys definitely have that long-term, sort of mentality. And so the message that you're sending there is that, like, I want to do business with you long-term. I care about my reputation professionally and personally. So I'm not going to do anything to cheat you or lie to you or steal to you. Now, that might still happen, yes, but that's the message that you're sending.
Not from us, though. We're not going to do it.
What do you mean that might still happen?
I mean, I'm not saying from you guys. I'm just saying you could still be in that situation.
Not only does he not read my book, now he's going to sit here and say we're going to lie, steal, and cheat. Probably, maybe, could be.
Listen, man.
Who invited this guy to do this podcast?
I don't see you guys ever doing that.
Thank you, Scott.
There we go. But no, I mean, yeah, I think that is one of the key elements of that. You know, and the next thing that kind of goes into the environment. It's almost always that you see a person start a fitness plan and then they sort of are more conscious around their environment, whether that be maybe they're not going out to drink as much. I don't have anything against alcohol if anybody drinks, but if they're not drinking as much, maybe they select where they eat. Did I? I mean, I'm not. Everybody knows that alcohol is very detrimental to your gains.
Get off the floor, producer Scott.
Yeah, Scott came in here stumbling earlier.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like you change your environment, so you change. Maybe you're filtering out, maybe cutting back on alcohol or whatever it is. And so when you change your environment, one of the big things about growth as a professional and personal is being in the right environment, like being in the environment, whether that's networking or whatever that might be. And so, like I said, almost always people change their environment. And when you do that, man, it's like by extension, you're changing your diet, you're changing your environment, but you're also changing your mental diet. So the things that you consume, like social media, there's no shortage of negativity on social media. We can get on social media right now at this very minute, all of us, and be inundated with negativity. That kind of stuff matters. What you consume, finding a good book to read, this kind of information. This is really good. You should be consuming this positive
What are you
information.
saying? You haven't found a good book to read? Is that what I'm to take out of that statement?
I'd say, who's got the shovel? I just keep digging over here, man.
That's good.
And then what would he say? Oh, the presentation. So when you see, somebody who's taking care of themselves, in my experience, this has been my experience coming from the landscaping industry, something that's very, labor intensive. I have been told before that I got hired into a landscaping job, and there was there were like 10 of us, 10 plus companies they were choosing from. And they told me about 6 months into this thing that they hired me because they felt like I could keep up with the demands or whatever of the job.
Yeah.
And so like when somebody sees that you're sort of taking care of yourself, they see that you're presenting yourself in a way where you're either physically capable or mentally capable. And there's more things to the presentation. It's not just your physical, it's how you show up, how you articulate yourself. And there's different aspects of that. The self-confidence, that's kind of an obvious one. My biggest thing about self-confidence is you build self-confidence by keeping promises that you make to yourself over a timeline. And for a lot of people, I'm not going to say it's easy to do that, but an easy idea to understand is fitness. So if you tell yourself you're going to the gym 3 times a week, you do that 3 times a week, you're keeping promises to yourself, and over a timeline, you trust yourself.
Right.
Like if you guys trust me to be here, and if you trust me to read your book before I get here, like maybe you'll trust me more. I don't know. I might have to work on the confidence with him after this. I don't know. We'll see. But you just build that relationship with yourself just like you would another person. And then the process, man, definitely the most important part. It shows you that when you're building sort of a losing weight or building muscle, whatever it is, that is a process. Just like building wealth, just like building a business is a process.
I like what you said about the promises you're keeping to yourself, because I don't think people think about that when I want to lose weight or I want to get healthy.
Yep.
And then it's just kind of this arbitrary goal, but taking it a step back and saying, hey, no, I'm gonna make a promise to myself. I'm gonna go to the gym 3 days a week, 4 days a week, what have you. And then you do that, building, I'm becoming a trustworthy person. Like
with yourself.
Right. I was gonna do this. I'm doing it. No, that's awesome.
Well, and just as a little extension on that, one of the reasons that's so important is we're talking about building wealth, building a business. I don't know about you, but when I started my business, almost nobody around me understood what I was trying to do. This was something that came internally from me. Now, back then, I hadn't really done the things that I needed to do to build that confidence. However, if you have a business decision, if you have an investment that you want to make, if you have a purchase that you need to make, a lot of times people might not understand like you, and you had that sort of voice, that intuition that comes up. The question is, can you trust that? And can you trust that because of what you've done before that point? So what kind of relationship do you have with yourself when that question comes up? Hey, should I make this investment? Should I hire this person? Should I pursue this thing? Those are very deep questions. And a lot of times, man, people might not know the answers like you, know?
That's cool. No, that's really good. That's I don't think that's something that people think about. So.
Yeah. And it's so crazy, man, because when we talk about self-confidence, people just think about loving yourself and all those things are very important. But it's like when you build that relationship with yourself, like you have yourself 24 hours a day.
Right.
I mean, you're in your own head 24 hours a day. So a lot of people don't think about the relationship you have with yourself as a relationship. We think about our partner, we think about our family, our friends, and we think about, well, maybe we would never say or do this thing to that person. But it's like, well, what are you saying to yourself? How are you treating yourself?
I got you. Yeah. Yeah. You made a mention of something earlier about you got the job with a commercial property because they thought that you could keep up with the demands and stuff. I heard another coach say something one time, and there was he was using a real world example of an advisor that he had worked with, and the advisor was not healthy, didn't take care of himself. And a lot of people were, he was losing business, wasn't being able to close and stuff. And so they had this whole long conversation and everything. And somebody finally told him, and he said, "Hey, like, why would I take advice from you? Looking at the way you are, how you're taking care of yourself, why would I take your advice on this?" And the crazy thing about it is the guy was really good at financial planning.
Right.
He was really good, but people couldn't see past that. And so there's this perception, right? Like if you don't take care of yourself, in what way are you going to be able to help me to do A, B, C, or D?
Right.
So,
well, and there's a lot of aspects of that you can't see. Like this person you're talking about, if he works with a person and he's good at what he does, the person has to first make the decision to work with that person. So there's a barrier there. Like they're never going to see how good unless he's got reviews or they know people or whatever. Sure. But they're never going to get past that barrier to work with this person. But it's this example you mentioned about this being hired for this, man. It's like when they see that you are, it's like it takes discipline to look a certain way or to take care of yourself, And so people are like, well, man, if this guy's got enough discipline to take care of himself or whatever, maybe he's going to not cut corners with me if I work with him, Right. I mean, it's just crazy. Like these messages that we I guess we consume when we see people or around people,
Subconsciously.
Yeah,
Subconsciously,
actually. Yeah, definitely.
Let me ask you this. How long have you been coaching now?
So the coaching is relatively new. It's about 7 months.
Okay.
November, what is that? 6, 7 months?
Something like that. Have you been able to see, if there was anybody you started out with November to now, have you been able to see any like mindset changes or tangible differences in some of your coaching clients?
So a lot of the changes that I've been seeing are sort of these perspective shifts. Now, some of this stuff is like some people don't necessarily have the mindset issue. A lot of people actually have issues with systems, believe it or not, like the systems they have. But yeah, I think when some of these the most profound changes I've seen have definitely been from the mindset. Because again, if you don't have that sort of as a base, you're sort of putting a limit on yourself on where the systems or the finance or whatever else can take you. I mean, it really starts with that.
Yeah. Okay. Curveball has absolutely nothing to do with the coaching aspect. Has there been one industry or individual that you have like just loved working with or hated working with?
I think loved would definitely be the new business on new entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's that drive there. There's that desire. It's like, man, I really want to get after this thing. I can't say there's any that I've hated. Again, it's new. So maybe ask me again in a year and we'll see.
Yeah. Give it time. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there is somewhere.
That's good. I had another question I was going to ask you and it left me.
Well, while you're thinking, let me ask a question. So, Cody, with your clientele from the various backgrounds they come to you from, do you see for the individuals who come to utilize your services, from your perspective, is their mind already bent towards being coachable and adaptable, or is that something you've got to train at the very start as well?
You know, somebody told me one time, and I didn't realize it at the time, but this person actually does very well. He said that, you know, with the kind of people that you want to work with, one of the limitations, one of the barriers is going to be that person sort of getting in their own way and the need and sort of seeing that need that they need to work with somebody. And I think that's definitely true. You know, you can't just go up to a person and say, "Hey, your mindset's not right. Let me work." I mean, you know, it doesn't work that way. So I think the barrier, one of the barriers, the biggest barrier is that person sort of seeing that. But again, if that barrier is there, then that's probably shows that they need a little bit of work in that area. So you can't exactly sell it as, "Hey, let's work on your mindset." There's usually something else involved. Like it's like, well, man, I can't retain my team. I can't keep anybody on board. Nobody wants to work with me. You can't find. I'm like, okay, well, if everybody's doing the same thing, you know, there might be something else here. So yeah, that is a tricky. It's sort of tricky how to handle that.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious because I know in our line of work that we specialize in, as we were talking about prior to going on air, we try to get our clients to think more about the mindset needed to be successful, more so than are we choosing Microsoft or NVIDIA or Amazon.
Right.
In fact, I made mention to you, rarely do we even discuss individual investments with our clients. It's more about, this is the process, this is what we think you need to do, and this is how we're going to measure, monitor it, and follow it, and everything that's required to be in there, and plus the important part about containing your emotions and staying level when it's high and when it's low.
Right.
So I was just kind of curious, is that what you see whenever you're working with your clientele? Are they coming in looking for step by step, or are you teaching a philosophy, a mindset?
It really depends on the aspect of the business that we're going to work on. If it's something like a system or something like that, definitely a step by step. It needs to be like, what is the issue? Where is it inefficient? What can we do? And this is all contingent on if I can even work with the person. Now, a lot of times I might talk to a person and say, "Look, this is out of my league," whatever. In which case, because of my podcast that I do virtually, I've met people online that might be a better fit. You know, other coaches, financial advisors, whatever the case might be. And so there's a humility aspect of it on my end to say, "Look, I'm not your guy," you know. And so I wanted to ask you about something that you just said. You said that sort of the progress on the goals, like the progress towards the financial goals. And do you see a little resistance with that? Because I feel like it's sometimes the moment that we go to measure progress towards a thing, that puts parameters of failure around that thing. And I feel like a lot of things that keep people held back is not wanting to measure that progress because they don't want to show themselves that they're failing towards that goal. Do you see resistance in that?
I won't say that I understand what you're saying. I won't say that I see resistance in that as much as what I see is lack of buy-in to the strategy needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, no one wants to go to the doctor if the doctor said you need to lose 20 pounds and they've been eating Doritos every night, and they know they've been eating Doritos every night, and they know the doctor is going to say, you know, you went the wrong way on this weight thing. You know, nobody wants to hear that.
Right.
And it's very similar in the financial planning world. You know, people don't want to see that, you know, I'm not going in the direction I need to go. In fact, I'm going the opposite direction. They don't like to hear bad news.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, though, one of the things to point out with that is that's the initial resistance, I'd say.
Okay.
Once there's that buy-in, then it becomes a lot easier, because like we'll do financial planning with someone and we'll say, "Hey, look, this is what we're gonna compare this to. This is your benchmark that we're gonna try. This is your goal that we're gonna try," and then we can, "Hey, we didn't meet it this year. Hey, we did meet it this year." But a lot of the resistance we get is just up front, right? Because
Right.
of what Dad was saying. Nobody wants to know how bad they're doing, right? You know, the doctor can't tell you you need to lose 20 pounds if you don't go to the doctor.
Right. But I would imagine too, you know, to sort of tie into what I was saying about self-confidence, I would imagine that once somebody gets over that barrier and they sort of see these small improvements, there's a little bit of momentum that's built.
Yes.
You know? And so, and that's the same philosophy of the self-confidence, you know, is keeping the promises. Yes. But you're also building momentum on those small wins. You know, dude, if somebody's trying to lose 20 pounds, they go to the gym, they lose a couple, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That should be celebrated, you know?
Right.
And it also sort of, for some people, it's a little bit more difficult to understand because some people are just naturally more driven than others. But for a lot of us, those little milestones, those are not little. You know, those little goals, like the big goal broken down into multiple smaller goals, that's not a small thing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I remember what my question was that I was going to ask you earlier. The majority of business owners or individuals that you're working with, is it like a one-on-one thing, or are you typically working with like 2 owners, 3 owners, an owner, and a few employees, or what does that look like?
So in my experience up to this point, it's just been one sole owner. Now,
Nice.
I don't think there's any partners involved, business partners. Like I said, I do have this upcoming thing with this group, which is like students. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I think at some point there's going to be a lot more of that group stuff. But as far as working with someone's team, I don't have that experience. I haven't had that experience yet.
Okay. So you're an entrepreneur. You started one landscaping business. Now you're doing the coaching. What's the next business you're going to start?
That's a good question, man.
It's going to be a book reading club.
Yeah. Man, I'm not going to live that down. Yeah,
Nope.
I think I would actually do pretty good at that.
Yeah, you probably would. Yeah.
I can't hear anymore, Scott.
Yeah. Are we on?
Scott just turned everything off. Or was that your cue telling us to wrap it up?
I pressed the wrong button.
I heard the music and I didn't hear anything.
So have we not been being recorded for the last several minutes, or what have you done here?
No, I think we've been
You guys
recorded.
are back now. You can hear it.
Oh yeah, we can hear now.
Back.
Yeah, so this is what happened is I hit the button. And oh yeah, we're just gonna keep only that going.
Okay.
That's fun.
That was a good call.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, man.
I was wondering about that.
Cool. So we don't know what's on the horizon next as far as the business goes. Are you looking at continuing to grow the coaching business? Are you at capacity? Are you taking on more clients?
Yeah, definitely growing it. Definitely growing it. I know. And again, I want to see as far as I haven't found a niche yet, other than just business owners, entrepreneurs. I know when I found a niche for the landscaping company, that's really when we started to improve. So I haven't found a niche for that yet. I would imagine it's going to be something related to the group because I do see. I don't want to say more passion because that sounds like the one-on-one is less important. But I do see a future in that group.
That's cool.
In the groups. So I think at some point there's probably going to be a significant focus on the group stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. What other questions you got?
Well, I'm sitting here listening to Cody, and I'm just trying to envision our practice and how we work with clients and going through the mindset, the retraining of the minds and trying to get the buy-in. And I'm thinking about, like weightlifting. I remember there was one time, I know I don't look like it, but I used to lift weights back when I was his age, 30 some odd years ago. And I can remember, pushing that bar and with all that weight on it, that would be painful. All right. It would be painful, not only right then, but the next day. And it's one of those things where, if you want to succeed, you're going to have to embrace the pain, embrace the change. And I see that in everybody who is successful in whatever it is they try to do. They have to embrace the pain, whatever that might be. Because if we're not getting pain, we're not being stretched. And if we're not being stretched, we're right where we are. And that's when our to use your metaphor, our waistline is going to get bigger than our belt line. And we're going to become unhealthy, unsightly, unapproachable, and non-desirable. I mean,
Unapproachable.
basically, folks are not going to trust you because you're right. If the way you carry yourself speaks louder very often than the words you say.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
How have we gone through this whole podcast about, discipline and little improvements and stuff, and we've not once mentioned all those 5Ks that you started running?
Oh, really?
Oh, I don't know. Perhaps because I'm stuck on the fact that this guy that we've invited to discuss the mindsets, people, he has not read the book,
Yet.
The Financial Harmony, Personal Fulfillment, which is right up the line of the coach's things that he does. He hasn't read, this is how we met discussing the book, and he hasn't read the book. My heart is pained.
Well, so this is how I see this. Whenever you fail, it is only a failure if you allow yourself to stay there. So here, moving forward, I'm going to read this book, and that's going to turn this failure into a success. But you mentioned something about the pain, and I think that's a really good example because a lot of this stuff is sort of painful, and I think sometimes when they're building a business or whatever, they feel this, they think that, well, it's not for me. But it's almost like I was talking about with the process. That's sort of like it's part of it. That's part of the process. And when you're in the gym and you're building muscle, you build muscle because there are microscopic tears to the muscle. So you damage the muscle microscopically, and that's how it gets bigger. I don't know if you guys know this or not. A pearl in an oyster comes from trauma from the oyster. So some sort of debris or something gets in there and it calcifies or whatever, and that's what makes the pearl. So like nature shows us, and we ourselves show us with the life that we live. When you embrace that pain, like you were talking about, good things can come out of it. And so when I'm sitting here and I'm being grilled for not reading a book, I'm going to say, "Hey man, I'm going to read this book and learn." I'm just joking. But
it's going to turn into a pearl.
What book is he talking about? I wonder.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what he's talking about.
That's good. Yeah. Cool. Well, let me ask you this, Cody. Any final thoughts before we wrap up the podcast here, and then I have one question for you afterwards.
I don't think so, man. I think it's been great. It's been great talking to you guys.
Good. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Well, how can people get in touch with you?
So I'm all social medias. Cody Jones. I do have a podcast, the Pure Wisdom Podcast. I go over a lot of these topics with people sort of in these spaces. Ryan and I had a podcast together. C Jones 803 is Instagram. I think TikTok.
What is the name of your podcast?
The Pure Wisdom Podcast.
Pure Wisdom Podcast.
If you send me all of that, we'll give it to Scott, and Scott can put it in the all the links and stuff.
Perfect.
So.
Okay.
All right. So I've got one final question for you. What was the best piece of advice your father ever gave you?
Man, it really sort of is. I think it's one of the things that sort of pushed me in this direction, which was you do not have to work for someone else. You do not have to, work to. The way he phrased it was make another man rich, and I know there's a lot of people in this space that have heard that. And you don't have to sort of follow that path. You can make your own thing. Now it's going to be difficult. You're going to feel those painful moments in building that thing. But I think it's 100% worth it. I mean, because like I said, I just in my spot, man, working at a 9-to-5, I just could not survive there.
Yeah.
So I think definitely the fact that you can sort of build your own thing and you do not have to work for someone else if that's aligned with you.
Yeah, that's cool, man. No, that's good. That's good. Thank you. All right, so everybody, this has been Cody Jones. This has been another episode of the My Father Said podcast. With that being said, I'm Ryan.
Hey guys, I'm Robert.
And we will see you next time.
The opinions voiced in this video are for general information only and are not specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful.